Welcome to the light at the end of the funnel. This podcast is all about tangible solutions to common online marketing challenges. And it's also about the lighter side of entrepreneurship, the motivation, the innovation, the inspiration, and the growth mindset needed to build a business that stands the test of time and stands the test of the unexpected. I'm your host, Danielle Fitzpatrick Clark, and I want to thank you for spending your time with me today. So let's dig in. Hey everyone, Danielle Fitzpatrick Clark here from Influence Builder and your host of Light at the End of the Funnel. So we've been having a little fun and playing around on some different platforms and with some different guest speakers. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting some longer podcast episodes up here for you guys to listen into, but this is really good, relevant information. And the last couple ones that I've been putting up have actually been audio events that we're hosting on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has a new, semi-new audio feature within their LinkedIn events systems. And we have been having a great time inviting people in, answering questions, and just having good conversations about things that people really want to know about. And this next episode is with my friend and colleague. It is Brian Trachel. It's just Rachel with a T. So, and we are talking about how to sell your services on LinkedIn without being slimy. So, one of the things that Brian's really amazing at is he's really amazing at optimizing your LinkedIn profile. And I know there's like hundreds of people out there that say they do that, but nobody does it like Brian. And trust me, I have been on the platform for a very long time and I have been looking for the right people to bring into my company and to do JV partnerships with, and nobody does optimization like Brian. So that being said, we have this amazing audio event. Listen in. You're going to get some really good information. And you'll see below here, if you are on the page for where we're hosting this on lightthefunnel.com, you'll see that you can enter to win a ticket to an event, a workshop, a 3-hour workshop that Brian and I are hosting in October of 2022. So we'll have one winner. The ticket itself is worth $2,000 because this is a hands-on. You're going to get your LinkedIn profile done. So if you guys want a chance to get that ticket, then you're going to have to click the buttons here on this page below the audio and go on in and enter. So I hope you guys enjoy. It was a fun audio event. Everybody learned so much, and we can't wait to see you guys at the workshop, or at least I want to see your name on that list for the raffle to get that free ticket.
But once you get into one place, it's a living, breathing document, and then you can just maintain it from there. So, and then a couple quick, pro tips is don't try to get it done in one day, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. As Danielle and I have talked about, there's 22 sections, right? So let's just say 22 days. So the month of September, give yourself to the end of the month to finish your profile, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise you'll walk away and probably not go back to it. But again, everything that's not filled out and someone sees it, there's a chance of someone saying, I don't think they're the right person for me. So really overwhelm them and wow them as much as you can.
Yeah, really good advice. Really good advice. So there's another part of the attraction marketing we're going to talk about in just a minute, but what else do these guys need to know about that profile optimization that you haven't quite covered? If you were to give like one more piece or one action step for them to take as soon as they're done listening, what would that be?
Well, the number one thing I always start with is the privacy settings.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you haven't ever been on your privacy settings and you want to change the profile updates, right? So if you go to your privacy settings, there's a little picture of you on the right-hand corner. I call it your mini me, right? It's a little picture, and it literally says me, and there's a drop-down arrow. And then you want to click on your visibility section. So once you get into visibility, you want to go all the way down to the bottom, and it says share profile updates on LinkedIn. You want to turn it to no. And the reason you want to turn to no is because every time you make an addition to your profile, it shares that update with your community. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that and they're like, oh, so, Danielle must be on her LinkedIn today because I'm seeing all these updates. So we don't want to trigger our community to see, Brian played lacrosse in college, right? That's not a fun fact that you need to be notified about, right? Or Brian added that he added a new course. He took a new course. So keep that in mind before you get into your profile and start working, because otherwise everyone in your community is going to know you're working on your profile. And for those of you who are managers or in that space, another tip is if you do see that happening, there's probably a good chance that employee is looking for a job.
Just FYI for you guys that have employees.
Yeah, they're like, why is Danielle updating her profile so rapidly today? It's like because it's a Friday and she's ready to give her 2-week notice, and that's what's happening, right? So it's everything tells a story. All this activity, if you start connecting the dots, you'll start to see how it correlates with these activities. So, anyways, go to your privacy settings and unclick, turn that to off when you're updating your profile.
Yeah, that's really, really, really good advice, guys. And you can do that while listening. I'm sure you can do that while listening. Um, so that was really good. So we're gonna switch over seats here. So Brian, you're gonna be putting the questions on me as they come up when I talk about lead generation. So guys, we teach this together. Like Brian does the profiles, and then I come in and like, okay, now it's time for lead generation, but we really need that profile optimized before. Um, so with your lead generation, and I'll just jump in. Do you have any questions on this specifically, Brian? You think that I should cover? Because I can go hundreds of different
Well,
directions.
yeah, and again, Danielle and I we both are LinkedIn, and we have a lot of overlap, and we also have different ideas and things that's really a great partnership to work with you on this. And the one thing I just want to say before we get into that is there's this concept of always connecting with people, right? Like every day I need to connect with more people, more people, more people. The thing about it is I always like to run an exercise where you go through your existing network, and then you could piggyback on this. But if you go into your existing network, you have your second degree connections.
Hmm.
So let's say one of you has 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, and you do that exercise. You're going to find that those 1,000 people expand your network to 360,000 people. So my question always is why are we connecting with more people when our 1,000 people can literally introduce us to 360,000 opportunities? And you'll see that, and these are not just inflated numbers; these are real numbers. And then you would just sort your existing database by second degree and do more of a referral strategy. And I'm sure, Danielle, you have some tips on how to, get introductions and go that way. There's a lot of different ways to go out there, but I always caution people on always connecting with more and more and more when we're not really looking at who we already know, because at some point someone connected with us and thought it was a good idea. We just didn't take any action. And then they have people in their network that you want to know, but we have to meet them, so there's a first and second degree connections that we don't even know these people, and it's a good idea to get to know them. So maybe your marketing could be, reaching out to them and rekindling a conversation and try and pinpoint at what point did we connect and why. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and I like that. So the second degree connection guys are just they're people that your first degrees, those are people that you're connected with. So you guys have connected with each other on LinkedIn. Your second degrees are people that are connected to one of your first degree connections. So just to summarize that, so what Brian is saying, it makes more sense to connect with your friends' friends or your connections' friends or your connections' connections. And he's right, because that is a really good strategy, and it does get you many more connections. And you can do like the referral piece is really big, and there's a ton of different strategies that you can take with lead generation. Um, so what I like to tell everybody first and foremost is like use your search features on LinkedIn and target people. So if we're here on LinkedIn, chances are you know that your ideal clients are here on LinkedIn, right? So if this is the platform, and when I talk to people who are like, I know LinkedIn's my platform, this is where I can meet decision makers, then they chances are they know who their avatar is, which is just who their ideal client is. We call it avatar. And so when they know that, then they can actually um, start filtering through LinkedIn. Now, there's a couple different ways to filter through LinkedIn. If you have the free version, you can filter when you're doing searches. It's just not as great. So I will say that there's less filters with the free version, but it'll still do the job for you. Definitely search for those second degree connections, and if you're not sure who to search for or what to search for, the easiest thing to do is to go and find a current client or find a prospect and go to their LinkedIn profile and see what they have on their profile. Chances are, if you're listening to this and you go and take action on what Brian's saying about the profile and what you need to do to optimize it, they're not going to have as much information as you. No way. There's no way they're going to. But do what you can and see, the title is really important. The company or the past company can be one of those search features. The other thing I like to look for is I like to look for who are they following? Who are the influencers they're following? Because a lot of times we can have different opportunities created when we're both following an influencer. So even if we have mutual connections, there's no guarantee that that mutual connection is actually talk to them, or that they can give you a connection read in. So you've got to find other pathways to make conversation, and to make conversation about them. So that's kind of the first thing to do is to really get good at the search feature. Now, if you guys have gotten Sales Navigator, I love Sales Navigator. I think it's one of the best features of LinkedIn. It is expensive, but it does help you filter and it helps you filter a lot. Um, if I was to pinpoint a couple of my favorite filters in Sales Navigator, of course, the title. I like that. And there's also the feature of who's posted in the last 30 days. That's one of my favorites because it shows me who's active on LinkedIn. And I really want to connect with people who are active on LinkedIn like me, because the chances of me connecting with them and connecting with them fast are much higher than if they're not active on LinkedIn. That's not always the case, but it has served me really well to use that filter and then connect with people. So we use that one. And then we can do our lead generation. We do like to stick to, me and my team do like to stick to second degree connections. The only time that we go outside of that is if we're in a really aligned LinkedIn group. So if we're in an aligned LinkedIn group, it means that we have chosen a LinkedIn group where our ideal clients and colleagues are, and we can actually connect with people within that group. And even if they're third connections, we have the same we have the we have the sameness in that we're both in that group for a very specific reason, and so that usually will lead to a lot of really good leads and conversations. So those are just a couple of easy ways to search and to do some lead generation. Now you do have a limitation on LinkedIn, so they do have that 100 person limitation. There are ways around it. Brian, you probably know some ways around it too. It doesn't mean that you're just stuck at only sending out 100 connection requests. A lot of times you can do certain things that will have people coming to you and asking to connect with you. So joining those LinkedIn groups is a really great way. Posting, and putting not just relevant content, but thought-provoking content out there, and having your first degree connections that know you well, asking them to give it some love, give it some likes, give it some comments, just to boost you up in that algorithm, and just try to do that within the first hour, because I know that's one of the things that the LinkedIn algorithm looks for is like how popular are you within the hour of posting. So they do like to see that. The more comments that you can get, the better. Um, Very similar to Facebook, the more emojis that are not just the thumbs up, so the other emojis, the emoticons that you can get people to use, the better off you will be in that boost to the algorithm, and the more of your connections that will see it, and the more of your second degree connections that will see it if your first degrees are saying that they like it. So that's a little bit about the lead generation, and I want to make sure we have enough time for the next two pieces, which is really the good piece is it's the sales process. So um, I'll just leave it with this one piece with the lead generation and an optimized profile. The chances of you impressing somebody when you do send out a connection request, if they are an aligned lead, of them connecting, it's much, much higher with that optimized profile. And not only is it higher for them to connect, chances are they're going to go over and look at that profile and skim it and see what you're up to. So when they do that, they do accept that connection request. Then it becomes an easier conversation, either in the DMs or even if they go to your posts and they comment on that, they know you. They know more of you. They know more about you. That trust factor is already starting to grow for them. So that's why I always say the profile optimization has to come first before the lead generation.
I believe that too, Danielle. Absolutely. There's no point in going out and doing all that work when you're directing people. It's like sending people to an open house that's
Yeah.
not clean, right?
Oh,
You're not going to.
yes.
So you have to get the house in order before you go out and start marketing it. I think that's really key. Um, it's okay, sometimes you have to wait and wait a couple days, but if you can just slow your pace down until that's done, then launch your campaign. To do it simultaneously would be tough, but again, it all depends on where you're at. But if anything, just really give it some attention and go through. And I have to do it myself. At least once a month, I'll reconcile my own LinkedIn and realize, yeah, that's a little bit dated. I need to change that. And things are always changing on this platform, so that's the thing. Just because it's done today doesn't mean you're gonna have to go back and make changes along the way. So just be comfortable knowing that the platform will have different reiterations and that you'll have to pay attention to that. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like any of the social media platforms. I mean, they're always changing. So LinkedIn's always changing and improving. And just as you guys are as business owners, you're always improving. You're always getting new skill sets. You're always publishing new white papers or articles or lead magnets, whichever your industry is calling for. So it would make sense for you to always be optimizing your profile and your approach. So there's but the good news is, and Brian says this, he's like, yes, but once you've got the meat of it done, then it's easy, then it's really easy. And he's absolutely right. Once you have the meat of it, then anything that comes in is just an addition and it doesn't take as long. It's that initial optimization that can be time consuming, and I'm in the process of it. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is like a decade of content and all these skill sets that I've learned that I'm putting up on this profile. I'm like, is it ever going to end? And um, I don't know if you said this, Brian. You're like, I hope not, but I mean, it's kind of that the more is more when it comes to your LinkedIn profile, and it's all good.
Yeah, that's actually, I do say that more is more. This is the one time where you want to just really embellish everything and several times over. But again, everything counts, and it actually you start to look for opportunities, right? And especially, just a quick example, there's a volunteering section,
Mhm.
and there'll be opportunities, that you haven't considered that you can add to your profile. Like over the weekend, if you see, hey, there's a community cleanup, you know what? I'm gonna join that, and then I'm gonna add it to my LinkedIn as a volunteer project, right? So you can start creating ways to now go out into the community and also add it onto your LinkedIn profile. So you can kind of gamify it to some degree.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I'm glad that you're talking about that too, because the opportunities that we create with our profile when it comes to the sales process. I mean, I think that people often miss that your profile is actually your best selling point. And, LinkedIn, and all social media platforms, when somebody comes into your profile or your business page, that is essentially your website now. And that's how it works. I have so many clients are like, yeah, people don't even go to my website because I've optimized my profile. So if they connect with me on LinkedIn or they find me on LinkedIn, they go to my profile and they don't even need to go to my website because it's fully optimized. And that's really what's happening is that yes, we do need our website. It's a really great place for that other organic marketing through SEO, of course. But when it comes to social media platforms, we have so many sales opportunities right within our profile, especially when we've done the due diligence and taken Brian's advice and done our optimization and utilize it. So Brian, I know you've got a whole what am I looking folder of good of good information when it comes to opportunities and what your clients have been able to do with their profiles. I'd love for you to share share just even a little bit of those opportunities that are created?
Well, I think one is really just mirroring your website.
Yeah.
So if you do have a website, and I agree with you, I haven't had a website myself because I've literally used LinkedIn as my website.
Yeah.
So so that's been, it directs people to your profile. But you really want to make sure, in order to get people coming inbound, we want to make sure whatever's represent of your website, it's in LinkedIn somewhere. So it kind of mirrors and the two talk to each other. So that's a really good way to attract people, plus add your SEO to be found. Now, there's always that expectation, right? That, just because your LinkedIn profile is optimized, that you're going to get, business, right? You're not going to, rarely do you get a call and they say, here, I have a gift wrap contract, and just because I saw your profile, right? But it is going to attract them to connect,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can follow up and have that conversation. So every once in a while you will be found, you'll get an unexpected client that comes from that. But we want to make sure that just because we can't say my profile's done, Brian, now how come my phone's not ringing, right?
Yep.
I really want to manage that, because we're talking about selling, and selling is not passive, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't just put a sign out and expect people are going to come in, but it's going to increase our visibility. And that's what we're really doing is putting opportunities where we can put our links in. We talk about the featured section, your activity, all these things are going to get people more engaged to come and engage with, with an inbound connection. The way I look at it is this way. Anytime I go into my LinkedIn and you click on my network and you have 5 invitations, that's how you measure. Those are inbound leads.
Mm-hmm.
You did nothing. You
Mm-hmm.
did absolutely nothing. And 5 people want to connect with you today.
Yeah.
What happens is, and I'm getting ahead outside of because we're talking about sales, right? There's the profile, then there's the marketing. But the sales part is, if you have 5 inbound leads, you're going to vet those people. Do I want to accept their invitation? And if you do you add them to your list of 5,000 people, or do you actually reach out, acknowledge that, have a conversation, or do they become another person in your haystack of people you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to look at what it really is that your efforts brought in 10 connections each day, or 5 connections, or 20. So really put your sales hat on and say, these are technically inbound leads. People would pay to have that type of traction in their inbox. So
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably attributed because your profile is optimized. They wouldn't have found you otherwise. Maybe they would, but let's assume that they were looking for something in particular and you got pulled in their search and they wanted to connect with you. So I hope
Mm-hmm.
that's helpful, but really pay attention to those inbound leads.
Yeah, that is really helpful. And I know you got a story because I heard it earlier today of somebody who put something on their profile and it got them a lead, and that lead turned into a client. So you probably have a million of those ones, but the one that you gave earlier, I think people would really love to hear that one.
Are you talking about the Formula One?
I think it's so, yeah. I think it's that
Yeah.
one.
Okay. Yeah. So there used to be a section on LinkedIn, and when Microsoft bought them, I think it was 2016, they got rid of that section,
Mm-hmm.
but it was called personal interests.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always thinking, well, they took it away, but I want it back in there, but there was no place to put it, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
I put it in the project section.
Mm-hmm.
So you just add projects to your LinkedIn profile, and the title is personal interests.
Mm-hmm.
And you list all the things you would answer if I were to say, hi, Danielle, thanks for coming today. When you're not working, when you're not disrupting, the digital arena, what do you like to do? And you're like, well, I like to garden. I like to do, and I don't know per se, I'm just throwing things out there. But this particular gentleman happened to like Formula One racing.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, great, let's put it in your profile, put it on their projects, personal interests. So he put in, Formula One racing, heavy metal music, guitar, live concerts, all sorts of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sports teams. 2 weeks later, he called me. He goes, you're not going to believe this. And I always say, well, actually, I will believe it, because I hear that all the time from people, because they're like, no, that can't be possible. Well, if you keep your hopes up. But he said, I got a call from Formula One Racing out of the UK. They were doing a search on LinkedIn. My profile showed up, and they happened to see that I was a systems analyst with a tech company, and they were actually looking to fill that position, but they just literally stumbled upon his profile because of the Formula One racing, and they offered him a job.
You can't make
He
this stuff up.
no, he told me he will go on camera. He will, send a notarized document that this story did happen, because he he had a 26-year career and left. He said, Brian, he's like, you don't understand. He's like, this is my dream job. And he got the dream job because of one key word in his profile.
Yeah.
And I do have other examples, but that to me is my marquee story about how one simple word in a profile changed someone's entire career and where they wanted to be. So everything counts. People want to know, what you like to do. I know, we're both Boston Red Sox fans, and some of you may hang up now because just
we
that
lost
fact.
two. We lost two.
Yeah. So anyways, but the point is, I have Boston Red Sox baseball in my profile somewhere. You can go look at it and try and find it, but it's in there. But some way or another, anyone that pulls up Boston Red Sox on LinkedIn, I will show up.
Yeah. That's
right.
Awesome.
And that's a common denominator. And then the backstory of that, Danielle, when I did sales in San Diego, I first did a search on LinkedIn for every single real estate agent from Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, all of New England, found them, connected with them, and said, looking to hopefully connect with some Red Sox fans on LinkedIn.
Yep. Oh yeah. Just like that. Just like that.
Just like that. And that was it. And that's how the whole thing started. So it really started from just one, love and passion of baseball, connecting with professionals in the same industry to build relationships.
Yeah. And, I love that you said that, because you actually told me, like, Danielle, put this in your profile. I'm like, really? I can put it in there that I love baseball, and it's okay that I'm Red Sox. And you're like, yes. And, the other thing is that it's obviously a filtering system too. Could get into
Exactly.
either people are going to come in or they're going to go out. So I know it's kind of funny whenever we move to a new subdivision or something and we look across the way and there's a Yankee fan over there. And so it's always the men that meet halfway with their hats on. And so it's kind of that idea too. But it does work. It's often, and you know what it does too, Brian, is that when you have it there and somebody says it shows you that they're paying attention, that they're actually looking at your profile.
Exactly, and we can play with this again. We're kind of throwing some ideas, but even the mere fact that if I wanted to change my headline, I could put in Boston Red Sox fan, Yankee hater in my headline, and literally get people's attention.
Yep.
Right?
And it's the hardest thing to do right now, is to get people's attention, or at least that's what everybody's pain point is, like, how am I seen? And he's just giving you some really good ideas, guys, on how to get seen on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be difficult. It can be really simple strategies. But those simple strategies are what lead to these conversations, these conversations are what lead to sales conversations. And so, I love that you're showing and telling them how to create these opportunities within their profile that do lead to sales conversations. So, and you and I can kind of go back and forth on this next piece, because we do sales. Like, we understand sales. We're in sales. I'm in sales every day. I'm sure you're in sales every day too. I don't quite have the background that you do in sales. I didn't have to do the cold calling or anything like that. But sales is sales. But there's ways to do with this on LinkedIn that's non-greasy, and you guys know the greasy way. You feel it. And we've all done it at least once. We've all tried it and say, hey, well, they're doing that, so it must work. And we try it, but really, like, non-greasy sales is more about being non-invasive. Like, I really think of it as being like not overstepping, making it more of a conversation. So is that kind of how you see, like, non-greasy, non-slimy sales?
Yeah, I think it's really just be fully transparent. I think where people are caught up is we're pitching people right out of the gate without even knowing if they have a need, or trying to understand their business.
Yeah.
So if you can cater to it's always about curiosity. If anyone follows EOS or does anything with the traction book, it's really the main question there is, I'm curious, right? I'm
Mhm.
curious, Danielle, does your organization ever use blank? Or I was curious, I saw your profile and you referenced something. Are you still involved in that? I'm
Mhm.
always asking questions and trying to, find out, are we in alignment so they can make the determination, but never selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I can usually tell when somebody's asking these questions, and so a lot of people are like, "Well, yeah, but people ask me questions and I never get to do one." And so I like to flip it. So if Brian came in asking me these questions, then I would answer them, and I would come back and say, "Enough about me. I get bored talking about myself. Let's talk about you. I got some questions for you." And so, and I'll usually put in something funny within that, just like, "Wow, I feel like I'm on like a first date with you, Brian, but I haven't gotten a chance to go through my checklist." So, um and that will actually turn a conversation too. So and I always like to play with how do we flip a conversation, because I know a lot of people are on the receiving end of these questions and they get into a conversation like, well, I don't know how to move it into something that's more of a networking, where it's a little more even, and it's really just it's a flip, and just think of it as, and we're talking specifically in the DMs and stuff. So think of it as like a conversation that you would have at an actual networking event, and just start writing the way that you would talk to somebody. Or if you were having a conversation, sometimes we're more polite in person than we are not sometimes, a lot of times we're more polite in person than we are online. So it's kind of just using that skill set if you have gone out and networked in person, and bringing that to your LinkedIn and your DMs. So it's all really
Yeah.
good stuff.
That's really what the way to frame it too is, we wouldn't give someone a presentation that we met at a
Right.
network. So great, let's sit down for an hour and talk about how we can work with each other. We're going to have to, it's a quality lead, right? There's
Yep.
there's a difference between just spam marketing and hoping, spray and pray. Or do
Yeah.
you want to do the work? Do you want to do the work and have a long-term referral partner, client? That's going to require a few stages of you having to go through and do that. But at the end of the day, it's definitely going to be a better sale or revenue generator than trying to say, I'm just going to send out all this information and hope that I get a client. And that's what a lot of people do. And you continue to go through that hamster wheel,
Yeah.
when really most people are pretty open, to talking.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure that, and really be interested in them. And that's, if you read, How to Win Friends and Influence People by
Yep.
Dale Carnegie,
Yep.
I've literally taken that concept, and LinkedIn is the digital version of How to Win, friends and influence people.
Yep.
So that's how you come across not being slimy. Is we don't sell services, product. It's about them, not what we think they need, or the products that we think we can help them. And that's a distinction. But you're probably getting those in your email, your inbox of like, hey, I saw that you're this, and we have this. Schedule a call with me. Take 1 hour out of your day and schedule a calendar with me. But I don't know you,
Yep.
so I
Yep.
don't think that works, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've done that before where they've just pitched me and I'm like, well, that's really great. I'm like, I don't think I'm your ideal client based on what you've just pitched me. Um, that doesn't mean that I don't know who they are. And so and another way that I'll flip these conversations, and I'm all about flipping the conversation so it's a positive experience for both of us. Like the worst thing is being in a negative experience and being on the side of like, oh, this is just the receiving side of the negative. So I like to put it into more of a positive perspective. I'm like, this is going to be a conversation, and it's going to be a nice balance one, or I'm not going to participate. And you guys can do that. You can say, I'd love to talk to you. I don't think I'm your ideal client, but I may know some people. So let's have a conversation and let's see how we can help each other. So that for me, that always gets a really good response, even if they come in hot and pitching.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to leverage that, and you can make introductions to your network with other connections and things to pass people along if it's not a great fit. But it's really was built to have your own network of professionals that can, it's like having your own BNI group,
Yeah.
your own concierge service. And that's really how I look at LinkedIn. I don't look at it as a selling platform.
Yep.
I look at it as a relationship building platform
Yep.
that can create referral partners, strategic partnerships, and of course, inbound, outbound sales. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to what's your threshold for, expectations. And
Yep.
that's what I like to try to manage.
Yeah. And and it's a tough place to manage expectations, but it absolutely can be done. And it's all about and I think this is to what you're saying. It's about communicating. You have to communicate, and you have to be willing to communicate too, and communicate effectively. And I think all social media platforms take this, but it does take a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, and I would celebrate your wins a lot. We're discounting because what's the goal of a connection request, Danielle? Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if you were to simplify it, the goal is that you accept it, right?
Hmm.
So if I send you a connection request and it's accepted by you, that is a direct result of an outbound sales action. I sent a request, it was accepted. That's a metric I can measure.
Yeah.
What a lot of people are trying to measure is that I sent a connection request, it didn't turn into a sale. There's way more things.
Yeah.
There's way more things in between that have to happen for you to actually put so much weight on the first. And then I sent a message. They responded. Great. Now I'm moving down the line. So I'm celebrating those micro process wins to eventually schedule a meeting. Great. That's another win. And then it goes through that sales process.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not it's not a one hit.
Yeah, and those one-hit wonders are very, very rare. They happen once in a while. I mean, I'm sure you've had them, Brian, where somebody's just like, "Yeah, I checked out your profile. I'm gonna hire you." And I mean,
Yeah.
I've had them. I've had them. So you probably have had tons of those, and they do happen. And to what you're saying, Brian, the majority of them, I would say probably about 99%, it's more of the relationship build, the networking piece. And so you got to get good at it. You just got to get good at it. We don't
Yeah.
have
And it
the
does happen. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
we just don't have the numbers game to play anymore on LinkedIn. They're not allowing us to. So we have to be really, and they're doing it on purpose. We have our slap on the wrist on purpose. It's because LinkedIn doesn't want it to be a numbers game. They want you to actually connect and network and build the relationship. So
Yeah, if you're ever bored and you want to read their user agreement, you'll see that in there. Right?
you've read it, haven't you?
Every once in a while, I pull it out. It's my go-to. Right?
You're so educated. You did it for us. We appreciate you. We appreciate
Yeah.
you. So I think that I got a couple of DMs too. So guys, if you have questions, you can go ahead and DM me. I know a couple people have already. They had to leave early, and
Okay.
luckily I did turn on my Zoom to record this about 15 minutes in, so I will have a replay as well for those guys that did come in. But if you have any final words before we go into kind of like a little bit of a hot seat session where people can ask us questions, then the floor is yours before we bring somebody else up.
Okay, fair enough. Again, I love to talk about LinkedIn. It's my favorite topic in the world. But the thing about LinkedIn is just I always like to say, stop being the Clark Kent Superman, where you have the two personas. So we live in a world now where most of us are working remotely, digitally, online presence, and your Facebook page should not be. You shouldn't be a different person on Facebook as you are on LinkedIn. You want to some degree integrate those two personalities and not have to focus so much on it's so professional now.
Yeah.
It has relaxed, so you can have a little bit more fun. So that's my last piece.
Oh, I love that you said that. Actually, and I posted something because it was a meme by Dolly Parton. She started it where people would post like actors would post pictures of themselves, um, based on this is LinkedIn, this is Facebook, this is Twitter, and the last one was like Tinder or something. It was really funny. And I chose the Hulk, the actor that plays the Hulk, and I was really disappointed because I'm like, you know what would have really made his LinkedIn profile great is if he had a picture of him in the last Marvel movie, which is Endgame, where he was a hybrid of Banner and the Hulk, where he was built as the Hulk, but he talked and thought like Banner, which is the professor. Um, and so that would have been funny, but he didn't do it. But anyway, so to what you're saying, that's actually not a thing anymore. We can be who we want, who we really are on LinkedIn. We don't have to be the professional version of us. And you're right. That is something that people are they're still trying to move over that hump of I need to be this way on LinkedIn. I love that you
Yeah,
said
they're
that.
stuck in this. It's all business. It's not. I mean, business has never been that way half the time, anyways.
Yeah.
But we've created it as a resume. Oh, I have to, people corporate. It doesn't have to be anymore, especially if you're not even in corporate and you're more on the entrepreneurial side and doing those things. But again, have fun with it. I'm going to change my photo. I'm guilty as charged. It's too old. But again, the shoe guys, shine their own shoes every day. So yeah, but the photo is a work in progress. But
Yeah.
anyways, I digress. But let's definitely hear some questions. I'd be curious
Yeah.
what's happening out there.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys, you can raise your hand. So if you want to come up and ask either of us a question, or we can both field it for you. I do have a couple in the DM. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Um, while you guys are deciding, I'm gonna ask one. So okay, so it's an anonymous question, so I'm going to keep it anonymous. What are Brian's thoughts for company services that identify your target market for you on LinkedIn and then reach out on your behalf through your account with an introductory email? I like the idea since I have a small team, such a small team in limited time. Is that slimy? It's a good question. Would you call that
I
slimy?
don't, yeah, no, I would need more context on that. A
Yeah,
little bit more about the back end side, because there are people that do manage people's LinkedIn.
yeah,
And if I'm hearing it right, and I might be misconstruing, but if you're going to if you're going to work on someone else's LinkedIn on their behalf, you might want to tell the person, this is Brian on Danielle's account. I wanted to reach out on their behalf because they were interested in talking to you. So
yeah,
really be transparent. You don't want to give the impression that they're talking to Danielle. You should really be upfront about that.
yeah. Yeah, and and that's a really good point. Is like transparency goes a long way. And so, and I've done that before on Facebook. I haven't done that on LinkedIn. If I'm going to ask somebody to a call, then I'm going to be the one asking, so I know who they are when they come on the call.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or at least I have a pretty good idea. But on Facebook, we've done messages where it hasn't been me, and so I just tell my admins, I'm like, just tell them it's you, and that they should know you if it's in a Facebook group because you're the admin. You're just talking to them on behalf of me today to go and watch this webinar that I created specifically for them. So that's transparency does go a long way. You don't get a bad response that way,
Right.
but if you were to jump on that sales call and you had no idea who you were talking to, and they said something like, "Well, yeah, we talked in the DMs, and I told you this story," and you don't remember, then it gets awkward.
Yeah, mitigating risk is the best way to go. So, just go with that policy. But yeah, I think it'd be fair to say, hey, sorry, this is Brian. I jumped on Danielle's because she's hosting a podcast right now, but she's really interested in speaking with you today. What does your schedule look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's just as simple as that too. I love
Yeah.
that. All right, guys, do we have any other questions? Anyone want to raise their hand? Got a specific question on your profile, how to do sales, how to create opportunities? You just got to raise your hand and we'll bring you on up.
Yeah, I would love to hear what you're doing now, or something that you're trying out, or if you want to role play a scenario. I mean, I said that my expertise is masqueraded on LinkedIn, but I'm really, it's been a professional sales career for 25 years. So it's really about outbound, business development, and having really solid conversations about products and services.
Oh, okay. Hold on, I got another one coming up. Um, all right, we'll run. Oh, Chase just raised his hand. Since he raised his hand, we'll go with this one first.
Okay.
All right. Chase, you're up.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Pretty good, Chase.
I guess my biggest question is, so when you kind of are, I guess, versatile in your I guess fields, um, is there, so like when someone goes on your page, how do you get them to realize that you you're working in all those fields, not just, that was my previous job. And I don't do that any longer. Cause sometimes I feel like that's kind of the vibe I get when I look at profiles. It looks like, okay, in the past he did graphic design, but now he's doing sound engineering. So I guess he's a sound engineer now.
Well, yeah, I think all your experience is relevant in the experience section. Your summary is really going to highlight where you are today, in
Okay.
the first two sentences. So, hi, thanks for finding me on LinkedIn. I focus on such and such, and then because they're only going to see the first two lines anyways until they expand the see more function.
Okay.
So if that's their attention span and they want to go further, that's okay. They have relevant experience, and people do change careers. They retire, they start a second career. So, but your first two lines in your headline really need to focus on exactly what you're focusing on.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and then what do you do, Chase? What's your industry?
So music industry, and I'm also a graphic design artist. So I do sound engineering, production, just a whole plethora of things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I'm here to not critique. I'm just here to add advice. But I just want to. There's one thing that based on your title, is that I wouldn't know that because all I see is CEO at Hustler Dior. So
Okay.
your headline should really be, music enthusiast,
Mm.
or sound engineer, making the world sound better one stage, making the world sound better one stage at a time,
I like
right?
that. Yep.
Okay.
Or,
Like
but
that. That's
okay,
good stuff.
so yeah, here's my thing, Chase, and it is no dig on you. You're the
No, no, no.
CEO. You're the CEO, right?
Right.
Remember how Danielle was talking about how if you put your phone number in there and you're going to get solicited a lot. Well, the
Right.
number one thing people are trying to find are CEOs. So if you don't want to be found for the CEO, you want to move that somewhere else. You want to put in professional, experienced musician with a passion for this, changing. But the CEO actually might work against you.
Mm,
I have
yeah.
noticed that when I first filled out my LinkedIn profile, it was like I was getting spammed left and right by people.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, everybody wants. I mean, that's the CEO, CFO, CMO all day long. You're on their hot target list.
Yeah. You know what I would do? I would just to piggyback off of what Brian is saying, because I absolutely do that with
Mhm.
your title. But because of your industry, it would be really cool for you to turn on, if you don't already, to turn on creator mode and to create a LinkedIn story of you, I don't know, doing some kind of a music movement and having that video. You've got a minute and you could utilize that. You could say, these are all the things that I do. But I would definitely
Mm.
make it very animated so that when people came to your profile, not only did they have that fantastic title that Brian just gave you, but then they have a visual of you and your music. So you can definitely do something within that, and they can click on that and they can hear about all the things that you do. So that will absolutely help to solidify that trust factor. So for LinkedIn videos, actually, you guys can go to my profile and click on mine, and it'll take you to a training on how to do it. But all you guys really need to do is turn on creator mode and then go to your phone, have the app on your phone, and you can upload a video, you can pre-record it, or you can create one right there. And so make it really personality wise to you and what you do. But that's a
Mhm.
huge differentiator too.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
See how we just bounced it right off of each other, Brian? Isn't that great?
It's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's
flowing. Like, thank you
quick.
all.
Yeah, quick on the feet, right? You have to be. You have to be able to look at things. But the cool thing is that everyone's stuck in their own. Daniel, we're outside the bubble. So I mean, literally, when you pulled up, I already am starting to look at headline. What does it have here? Title. What is that? So it's really gets to the point of that. That's how fast people are sizing up and looking at things
Yeah,
before they make a decision. So yeah,
yeah.
but I definitely we'll see what you come up with, Chase, but have some fun with it because I think you have a lot of experience and you might not even be leveraging some of those things right now.
Yeah, how amazing is that would that profile be with that title and then just him coming up on I'm just getting chills. I'm like, yeah, I would totally like read the rest of his profile just with that one little piece at the top. Um, okay, so does anybody else have a question now that Chase got us started? You know, this is usually where floodgates open. Everyone's like, well, now I need to ask my question. If not, I got another one in the DMs that I can ask. Just raise your hand. Everyone's being shy, or they have no questions. I don't believe that you guys don't have any questions. It's never the case.
No, and again, LinkedIn is so great that I could jump on your profile right now and start asking you
Ooh.
questions.
Ooh. See, I did a little call out and then Brian took it that next level up. I love it. Oh, still
Yeah,
no takers.
yeah. Well, that's okay because there's 100 million people have the ability to see everyone's profile right now.
I know,
But
right?
no,
Uh,
but seriously, like, all kidding aside, like really, if you do have any questions or you just want to ask as anonymous, I really would love to see if I can help with any burning, questions that you've had or even comments. This has been happening. Why is this happening? Or
yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, it's all really good stuff. So I don't see any hands. I will go ahead and go to the DM and pull this one. So I have a question. Okay, an anonymous one. Touche, got it. And the anonymous question is, is it okay for me to just cut and paste a welcome message? Um, is it okay for me just to cut and paste a welcome message over and over to my new connections, or do I need to have something that's a little more organic? So I think you can probably run with that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. My question back would be, what does it say? What is your message that you're actually cutting and pasting? Right. So,
Yeah, hold on one second. Why don't you run with it while they type it to me?
okay, yeah, because there, as I mentioned before, that the transparency is that you are going to say the same thing over and over, right? Just to different people. But how can we make them feel like it was created for them and it wasn't a cut and paste and it wasn't a generic, right? We want to make sure we find a way to customize it, but minimize our cut and paste time, right? Because that's always a challenge. Like, well, if I customize it, it's extra time I have to spend.
Yeah.
So, and it also depends on how many people are literally, you have to send that to, because if it was just one per day, I would be calling those people on the phone and having a conversation, or really have a well-crafted message. So it just depends on your bandwidth, right? But if it's copy paste, make me feel that I'm at least important enough that it's not a copy paste. I don't want oh, hey, thanks for connecting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you say that. And and I kind of bring it around too for everybody and just like, well, if you think about it this way. If somebody was to cut and paste that message into your DMs and send it to you, would you answer them? And most everybody says probably not. And if they've been on LinkedIn at for any length of time, then they've gotten those messages. So it's just another way to kind of put it back on, like, well, what would you want to see? What would actually interest you? What would make you open up your DMs if you were inundated? And we can just assume that everybody's inundated right now with LinkedIn DMs because that's what everybody's talking about. But think about what makes you actually talk to somebody in the DMs and then create that experience for them when you send them a message. A really good example is actually somebody sent me a video message. And not only did she send me a video message, but she went and liked like three of my posts before she sent that video message. And then she went on to one of my live streams that I had last night and she commented and they were decent ones. I knew what she was doing. I'm like, yeah, she's gonna try to sell me. But hey, I like her approach, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk to her because I like her approach and I like that she took the initiative. So, but it was actually a really great connection. She's doing all the right things. I mean, it's almost like Brian's already talked to her, and she's not trying to sell me. She's just saying, I really like what you're doing and I have some questions. So it's a good conversation for me, but there's definitely a jumping off point where I'm like, well, I would actually jump on a networking call because she didn't make it all about her. So I know that if I actually do a networking call, then I will get something out of it and I won't be the only one giving.
Yeah, I think you have to really look at what do you want to happen with that connection, because you could say thanks for connecting or just not even bother, right? If it's not someone you want to engage with, they're not expecting a thanks for connecting. And
Yeah.
if they're really wanted, if they sent you the connection request,
Yep.
they should be sending that to you,
Yep.
right? So I don't think it even has to be a systematic approach where every person gets an acknowledgement unless you make that your protocol,
Yep.
right? Or the only people I actually respond back to are people that I know I have a very high percentage of getting along with, building a relationship, and they may have a need for my product or service, or can refer me to someone that does. That to me would be the process I take before I even respond with a generic, because it's really not helping you if it's a cut and paste.
Yeah. And it's not helping them either. And
Right.
so I think the the short answer is don't do just a cut and paste to a lot of people. Um, to what Brian's saying, it's a quality game, it's not a quantity game. Is that a good summary?
That's 100% of how I run LinkedIn. It's
Yeah.
really quality over quantity, because you have to sort a lot to find the right ones. But that's with all business, right? That's with everything.
Yeah.
Is that you're not gonna just get a magic funnel that's gonna always work, right? Because we have to have that human connection, especially on LinkedIn. Maybe some other platforms you can, but if it's a service, it's a lot harder because they really need to get to know who they're buying that service from.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's so many different ways on LinkedIn. I love what you say, Brian. And you said it and I started laughing like, yeah, that's true. LinkedIn doesn't even know what LinkedIn has. It's what you said. I was like, that's right. I don't think that they do, because there's all these different ways that you can connect and you can network and you can communicate with people on LinkedIn, and they keep adding. And like, this audio is awesome. I love the audio piece, and I didn't think I would because I didn't love Clubhouse, but I like it on LinkedIn. I like it a lot.
Yeah, no, it's good because you can reference profiles. You can that's the thing they don't know, and they're still working. They have 5 different remote teams in different countries working on the same projects or different things. So for as good as LinkedIn is, there's always a lot of backdoor ways to get around what LinkedIn doesn't even know. It's kind of like the Matrix, right? If you've
Yeah.
ever seen the Matrix, they built in the keymaster and they hid all these other little things inside the Matrix as fail safes and things like. So that's what I do. I go around finding all those little rooms
Yep.
where I can get in and find a way to get to those areas. So obviously, a little bit of sci-fi movie background there, but either way, Matrix is a good representation of what LinkedIn really is.
I didn't know that we were going to give away those secrets, Brian, because I do the same thing, and I didn't even know that you like went and looked for the back doors, because I do it too. There's a lot of workarounds.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot of workarounds, but I was like, oh, okay. Are we going to keep it a secret? Well, for now we are, because me and Brian need to trade secrets first, and then we'll let the rest of you guys in.
Yeah, and I wasn't comfortable. Like, I don't know if the word, if I call myself a LinkedIn hacker, does that give me a bad thing? But I've essentially figured out how to hack a lot of things on LinkedIn.
Yep. So like I said, me too. And we definitely have some more conversations to have that'll be fun. Maybe we'll let everybody else in on it, but I don't know. You guys aren't raising your hand, so Chase gets to come and play for sure. Um, we're just teasing, but I think we've got time for even just one more hand. I'll give you guys one last chance to come on up to the stage.
Yeah. Or even a comment, if anyone out there, I'd love, we've spent some time. I'd love to make, just make sure that it was worth you listening for, an hour of this time, because I always walk away with some value, right? So if there's any takeaways that you thought, hey, if anything, this one idea I'm going to really use, or I liked it, or I like the concept, I would love to hear if there's any, just one word takeaways from you. So, because we're always improving, right?
Oh, yeah.
I never want anyone to be on a call and go, yeah, I spent an hour and, I didn't learn anything.
All right. Takes a second too. Awesome. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and you can DM us. We do have a program coming out the door here in just a few weeks, and Brian is going to be our profile optimization guy. So I will definitely send you guys all the replay, because I know a few of you guys came in a little bit late. So you may want to have that information, and I'll put it out on my podcast as well, so my podcast people can listen in. But also, you guys are invited to apply to. It's really a group program. It is LinkedIn heavy, but it's not just LinkedIn specific. So if you're on other platforms, all of this will transfer over, but it's really about socially selling and socially marketing, and how to do that really effectively so that you can fill your high ticket. So it's really great for people who have anything high ticket. It can work for low ticket as well. Just my preference, I like to go for the big fish. I always like to go for the big fish. That's kind of my thing. If I'm given the opportunity, Brian, I'm sure you're going to be like, yeah, always go for the go for the whale.
Always
Go for the whale, right?
Well, I don't know, Dana, if you knew, I wrote a book called Whale Hunting on LinkedIn.
You did. And
Yeah,
I'm reading it too. I'm reading it. Do I get to put that on my profile when I'm done? I do, right?
sure. Yeah,
I
why
do.
not?
I read the book. I'm reading it. It's really good. And I was reading it, and one of the things that he says is like getting up first thing in the morning. I think it was like 5 in the morning when I started reading it, by the way. I don't think I told you that, but it was like 5 in the morning. And I was like, see, this is why Brian and I get along because I'm up early reading his book on how to catch whales. So, um, and that's the first thing he tells us to do is get up in the morning before everybody else.
Yep, that's what you have to do. Catch that big fish. Get ready. But yeah. So, but I'd love to. Please connect with me and Danielle if you're not already. I'd love to hear feedback and again any last questions or before we wrap up.
And we'll do this again too, guys. So there's more stuff. I mean, goodness, Brian. I don't know about you, but I've got way, way, way more stuff that I could talk about when it comes to
Oh, there's
LinkedIn.
yeah, it is. I mean, especially when you're talking about sales, right, and processes,
Yeah.
and cutting paste. What's your daily? Everyone's like, what's my daily process for LinkedIn? What's my monthly, weekly, quarterly,
Yeah.
and how are you measuring all of these things? So it is a full. It's almost like its own CRM in a way, but it's a relationship manager, right? And
Yeah.
you can't just neglect it. I spend it. I'm on it all day, but at least give yourself a LinkedIn block time. Say, hey, every morning, 15 minutes, review this, and really have a schedule because you could be missing opportunities. And in this day and age, if someone's waiting in your inbox and needs your service and you don't check it for 3 days, they've already moved on. So I think I would check your LinkedIn first in the morning.
Yep. Yep. That's what I do in the morning. It's my morning routine. I call it my LinkedIn lap. So I do a lap. I do a lap like I would be if I was playing sports. It's lap time. So, all right, guys. So we appreciate you guys spending a little over an hour, about an hour and 15 with us. And yeah, just be on the lookout for the replay. And if you have any questions, connect with us. DM us. We won't turn you away. We'll never turn away good DM. And of course, to what Brian says, if you have some feedback, we're always open for feedback.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Danielle. It's always a pleasure to talk about these things, and look forward to hearing about your LinkedIn journey along the way. So, for everybody out there. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye for now, guys. Hey, thanks for listening to Light at the End of the Funnel, and help a marketer out. We always can use some love. Share, like, and subscribe. That is the best thing that you can do for any podcast. So if you like what we're giving you guys at Light at the End of the Funnel, please go ahead and share that out, and don't forget to subscribe. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.